Hey everyone, so I'm going to do a quick video response to a friend of mine called Louis Levi. I would definitely recommend you check out his channel. I watch all of his videos, and the reason I'm not recording my face in this is because I was watching his video while playing on my VR set, and my face is covered in stripes. So I'm not going to be doing that at the moment. But I did want to reply to this because while Louis is technically correct, which is the best kind of correct, there are also very real and pressing political reasons why Andrew Torva of Gab, the owner and founder of Gab.ai, a platform I use, although I'm not particularly familiar with Andrew Torva himself, except for I know that he can be quite a savage on Twitter, and presumably his own platform of Gab as well. Andrew has decided to prohibit something called lolicon. Now, if you don't know what lolicon is, that's good. That means you're a healthy adult human, and you should remain that way. Because what it is fetishized, sexualized drawings of underage girls. So it's something that is not technically illegal in the United States because there is no victim. You know, it's a fictional representation of a fiction. It's a representation of a fictional human, and so there's nothing to criminalize really, and it's protected by the First Amendment. However, now I appreciate this is going to sound like possibly an unpopular position, but I think it is something that we have to be reasonable about. Is it reasonable for Andrew Torva to ban lolicon from his platform? Especially, as Louis points out, in the light of having all manner of racism, anti-Semitism and Nazism, all that, you know, whatever kind of hatred you want on the platform because of its position as a free speech platform. And honestly, I kind of see why Andrew would do it. I'd probably be thinking about making the same decision if I owned Gab as well. And yeah, I hold the same kind of free speech extremist positions as Andrew Torva and Louis. And Louis' complaint is that this is hypocritical, as you can see from the description here. He pushes moralizing onto a platform, and he finds this hypocritical because Andrew Torva is a free speech extremist. I agree. I think that the way this is justified is by essentially pointing out that it's a very hot political climate at the moment, and not many people know what loli is, so when they try and describe it to someone who doesn't know what they're talking about, they're going to say child pornography. And there's no doubting that that is going to be taken out of context by particularly unfair media and various activists online. I mean, if me stating the scientifically verifiable fact that sexual maturity depends on the individual in question, the age at which they reach sexual maturity is different for each person, which is demonstrable. If I get in trouble for that, then yeah, I can see Gab getting in a lot of trouble for allowing this to proliferate on misinformation alone. So, like I said, I mean, I'm not making a judgment about the people who consume this, although I have to say I think it's degenerate weeb shit and I find it gross. It's not that it's not covered by your free speech laws. However, I think it is reasonable for Andrew Torva to look at the current environment and say, right, there are some things that we're actually not going to permit, even though they might technically be legal, even though there is a constitutional crisis over loli, I guess is what he would describe it. Like, he thinks that the law this is being done under, which Louis is deeply familiar with for some reason, is unconstitutional, but it was just never appealed. The decision, and it was the guy just caved into it because he was accused of trafficking this, even though it's not illegal to traffic, and he was accused of, I don't know, some arcane trading across state lines or something, I don't know. But Louis explains it in his video, and I'll leave it in the description. And like I said, you should definitely check out his channel because it's excellent. But I really do think in this case there is a reasonable case to be made that Gab doesn't want this on it, even though it has all the Nazi stuff. Because, I mean, the thing is, it's not like Twitter doesn't have lots of Nazi stuff anyway. You know, all of the alt-right is still on Twitter, or most of them are still on Twitter. You know, a lot of them are still on Facebook. They can still publicize their ideology. So it's not as prohibited as it sounds. They just can't, like, express it in the most extreme way. And this is starting to come back and bite feminists too, who are getting banned from Facebook and Twitter for saying kill all men and things like this. So This is the environment in which we find ourselves, and we need a strong and reliable alternative to Twitter. And I think that it's worth paying attention to the fact that ISPs and service providers, payment service providers, all this sort of thing, will just pull your site if they feel you are beyond the pale. And if a case can be made that Gab.ai has child porn on it, even if it's loli drawings, I'm not really familiar with all of this, but I think I understand what Louis talking about. Even if it is all of this stuff, then that could end up creating a moral panic. Well, I think they could inevitably create a moral panic and get Gab.ai to shut down. And I think, given the current political climate, it's probably worth us not allowing that to happen. I think that's the view that Andrew Torva probably has. And I think it's slightly unrealistic for you to expect him to be able to fully live out these principles anyway. I mean, no one really can fully live out their principles. Even communists who go live on a commune don't actually end up living out their principles to the full. And I don't think that necessarily makes them hypocrites as much as it does constrained by reality. And I think that we have to be reasonable in this regard and accept that we are sort of the dissident political movement, and giving our opponents an easy win over us and letting them just can us because, you might be into some edgy stuff, but do we have to pander to that all the time? Like, does it have to be, I think that politically now is exactly the wrong time for this kind of thing. You've seen what they tried to do to me, let alone a competitor to Twitter. He's going to get absolutely pilloried, and the moral panic could indeed end up swallowing his entire platform. And I do think that is a genuine danger, a real and present danger to the platform of Gab. When we need an alternative, a free speech based alternative to Twitter now more than ever. So like I said, I appreciate that he is in some regards infringing on his own principles with this, but I think reality is what we have to move and bend to. We can't try and make reality bend to what we want in such a large degree. I mean, you slowly try and incrementally change things over time. Not that I'm suggesting I want this to be the case, but I do want free speech. But it's you've got to work within the confines of the reality in which you find yourself. And I don't think this is the case of massive hypocrisy that Louis thinks it is. I think this is something that's close to Louis' heart, because he is also a degenerate weeb. But like I said, I'm not casting any judgments. He's a good friend of mine, and I'm sure he'll understand that this quick recording that I'm not even going to bother editing is delivered in the spirit of understanding of his position. But yeah, I don't think we should castigate Gab for being political realists and operating with a realistic view to what can happen. And yeah, so I look forward to Ludwig's casting. Maybe I'll edit it. I'm not even going to edit that. I look forward to your scathing response.